And the one thing you want to be careful here is to make sure that this shaft base is very, very clean. So it's always good to take a rag and wipe that off. Then you start your coupling. Once you get your coupling started, again, it's left-hand thread. Then you put a little never seize on the shaft. I usually wait until I got the coupling started just to make sure that it don't get any grease on the top surface where those two shafts mate. Got to get the tape off the head shaft, and then we'll be ready to drop the head shaft in. Okay. And one of the things I do here is the coupling has a small hole in it. I use that as a centering device, either with a little piece of wire or something, but if you put something in there, you screw it down, you know now that you're at halfway point on the coupling because this wire actually comes down in contact with the shaft itself. So from that point, the coupling is set. Now I take a rag because we're going to drop the shaft down through the motor. I actually put a rag on here so that we don't get any debris that could fall through and get down inside that coupling. So this is your head shaft, also sometimes known as a driver shaft. The shaft will go down through the hollow shaft motor. It'll couple in the head, and on the top side is where we actually clutch the pump and motor together. So what I'm going to do now is drop this down through, not really drop it, but I'm going to feed it down through gently. We do have that steady bushing on the bottom, so when I hit that, right there I've hit it. If I rotate it just a little, generally it'll fall through like it did there. So now I'm setting down on top of the rag and the slinger. So if I reach down here now, I can work that slinger up onto the shaft. Keeping that rag in place yet until I get this slinger worked up a little bit so that I have room to thread it. What that slinger does is if the mechanical seal or packing starts spraying a lot of water, it will actually keep the water from spraying up inside the hollow shaft and getting all over the motor. So it's just some sort of a protector. And now we can start this, threading this on again. I started a little bit, now I'll put a little never seize on it. Generally, you want somebody holding their coupling down below so that it doesn't screw down any farther. So once we get that shaft screwed in place and get it butted down a little bit, you want to check these margins on the top side. We want to get a good shot of this. You'll see here's your head shaft going down through the hollow shaft of the motor. See here how the motor turns, and yet the head shaft is kind of centered. Well, we want that to be dead in the middle, which we have pretty equal margins all the way around here. What that tells me is our shaft is coming up pretty straight through the motor. If that was leaning off to one side, say it was off like this, and as you rotated the shaft, if it wobbled from side to side, kind of like what I'm exaggerating here, it would mean that you have a bent shaft. Now if it's off to the side like this and you go down below and you rotate the shaft and it stays in this position, that generally means either your motor is cocked or your pump is not hanging straight in the hole. So it's a very simple way to diagnose if your pump is going to run trouble-free. If you have this shaft laying off to one side, you want to do some corrective action. So by rotating it, if it wobbles, you need to check for a bent shaft or dirt in the coupling, or just the coupling's not made up properly, the shafts haven't been butted together yet. And if it stays against one side, then check the motor to see if it's down tight, and if so, level your pump because the pump, because it's long, wants to hang in the hole straight. So if your base is crooked, the pump wants to plumb bob. That will actually cause the shaft to ride on one side of the bore or the other. Now is actually butt those two shafts together. We want to tighten them a little. But because we have a mechanical seal on the bottom side, we don't want to put a wrench on this area here and burn it up any, because that mechanical seal is a very close tolerance. If you had to change it, any wrench marks would have to be filed, emery cloth down, because there is an O-ring on the ID of the mechanical seal, and you don't want that O-ring to cut, because then you'll actually have seal leakage between the shaft and the seal itself. The other thing is we have a throttle bushing, or the steady bushing on the top side. That steady bushing is actually a very tight tolerance also. So if we put a wrench on the motor shaft or the head shaft and scar it, then we're going to have to clean it up before we can ever pull it out. So what we do in a case like this, and I recommend it only if you're using mechanical steel and steady bushing, is to bite the coupling on the inside of the pump here and hold it there. And then we're going to put the clutch on the top side. We're actually going to use the clutch and a key, and we're going to tighten it that way. Because the shaft is centered with the steady bushing, and we're going to center it with the clutch on the top side, we don't have to worry about bending the shaft. And when I pull the clutch off, because these come from the factory and they're balanced, I usually try to mark the clutch before I pull it off. So in this case, I just take something and I scratch it. And then I scratch on the non-reverse ratchet assembly, which is what we're looking at here. You hear that clicking. That's little metal balls. That's each one of these slots that prevents this thing from spinning backwards. Again, this is a left-hand rotation pump. If you turned it the wrong direction, it would unscrew the shafting and you'd have several issues. So again, I want to drop this clutch into place, lining up where it was from the factory. Go ahead and tighten these down. The clutch, or motor coupling it's called. I like to call it the clutch because it's actually where you make the connection from the motor to the pump itself. When I get this tight, I'll rotate it a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Want to go ahead and torque this down. Again, kind of do it like you would a head on a car. You want to work yourself around, not pull down one corner by itself, because you could end up cocking it. So once you get it tight, you're actually pulling against the non-reverse ratchet, so you can get a good pull on it. You can see I'm using just a small 3/8 ratchet wrench, giving it a pretty good tug, and that's tight enough. So now, see, here's the keyway of our shaft. Here's the keyway of the clutch itself. So what I want to do is put the gimp key in and start rotating, and when I hit the spot, I can actually slide it down in there pretty easily. If it doesn't want to drop in all the way, take yourself just a flat wrench and you can tap it down. That now has got the motor connected to the shafting, which will drive the pump down below. So, as I said, I want to tighten that shaft. So I'm going to take it, my wrench, and I'm going to put it on the coupling because I don't want to damage anything else. And I'm going to put my knee against it. Because this has a non-reverse ratchet, if I would take this pipe wrench, I'm going to hook it on the clutch up on top. If I was to back the wrench up against the head itself, and where I could really tighten it easily, the ratchet would not let me back the wrench off, so I would have the wrench stuck down there. So with my knee holding it, I'm just going to get to where I can feel it's tight, and then just give it a quick little snap like that. You're putting an even pull on it. You never want to do that on the shaft itself, and you never want to back it against the head and just pull on the shaft if there's not a clutch and steady bushing guiding it. It's a sure way to bend your shaft. So, we're now ready to adjust the impellers. And what we've got here is an adjusting nut.